Hey everyone, Reid Henrichs of Valor. The purpose of this video today is to give you a historical context about how far out of bounds a lot of the modern laws are, especially when it comes to concealed carry permits. Let's go ahead and get started. So I've been in a pretty historical mood today. I was looking over some articles about various topics. Specifically, one about New Jersey came to mind. Now, I understand that there are many states like New Jersey when it comes to exercising your Second Amendment, and that there are very restrictive ones out there, places like California, New York, Massachusetts, and you can probably figure out who else is on that list. So what we're going to talk about in this video today is we're going to talk about the actual burden that it is for an individual to carry a firearm legally in New Jersey, and how that stands in the face of what our founders intended. And given the light of the recent Bruin decision at the Supreme Court, how this burden absolutely defies the text of the Bruin decision, the text, history, tradition of carrying firearms in this country. So the point of me making this video isn't to just complain about stuff. The purpose of this video is to show you guys out there that the way to defeat a lot of these restrictions and these obstacles of carrying firearms is to beat the government at its own game. And we have done so the last many years. Look at Heller, look at McDonald, the most recent Bruin decision. There are many others coming down the pike as well. So what we can look for is history as our ally. Our founders provided the blueprint for this. Our founders provided a blueprint for being able to make the case for firearms ownership, and not just firearms ownership in this country, but carrying those firearms. After all, keep means to own or possess. Bear means to carry upon one's person. So the right to keep and bear arms is the Second Amendment. It's very important that we understand the history here. Now before we start, guys, I know that a lot of people watch the videos, and I understand that a lot of you have been subscribed for a long time, but even those of you that watch videos for a long time, I looked at some of the numbers that YouTube provides, and you know, over a third of you that watch these aren't subscribed to the channel. So just do me a solid, man. Hit subscribe. That means more people get the information. And then we can actually educate people on this stuff and start moving forward in restoring our rights. Now, out of curiosity, just to let you know, here in the state of Tennessee, we border more states than any other state. Tennessee borders a lot of different states on all sides. And what would it cost me, what does it cost me to exercise my Second Amendment, not only in my home state, but if I traveled to literally any state touching Tennessee? How much would it cost me to do that? $0. Because every state that borders Tennessee is permitless carry in one form or another, whether it's concealed or open carry. I don't have to ask the government permission to do that. Not so when it comes to the state of New Jersey. These people have been long suffering that have lived there. And I've got friends that live there, and I had a lot of students come to class that live there. And unfortunately, their government is very corrupt. Their government is very heavy-handed when it comes to taxation, and their government is very unfriendly when it comes to the Second Amendment rights. So just to give you guys an idea of what it would cost if you were a person living in New Jersey, just to exercise your Second Amendment legally to carry a firearm outside of the house from a financial standpoint. Just to begin with, you're going to have to apply. That application fee from what I understand here, there's an application not only get a firearm, your firearm ID card, that's like anywhere between $7 to $20. All right, then what you're going to have to do is you have to provide a criminal history. That right there is almost $70. Right now we're almost at $80, and that's just to apply. In addition to that, you have to sign a form, a consent for a mental health record search, and then you have to have 3 or 4 personal references. So how many of our rights do they have to give up just to be able to get a concealed carry permit there? Well, I can think of several right now. How about cruel and unusual punishment? Fees, excessive fees and fines as covered under the 8th Amendment. How about the 4th Amendment? How about that? Do you think that a government should call your friends and ask questions about you just so that you can exercise a right? Well, that's what the state of New Jersey says. So I've got 3 infringements right there. The 2nd, the 8th, and the 4th. After you go through your criminal history, your personal references, your application for a firearm ID card, after you do that, then what you have to do, you have to spend a $200 carry application once all that stuff has gone by. So $200 for a concealed carry application. And of course that can be even more depending on the municipality that you go to. You may have to pay the police department an additional $100, $150 on top of that. I hope you guys are adding up this money so far. I'm looking at close to $400 already. And then there's a requirement that the state of New Jersey mandates that you have liability insurance if you're a concealed carry holder. That can be anywhere between $200 to $300 a year for good ones. I know there's budget ones out there that cost less, but if you're going to get good coverage like that, you're looking at $200 to $300. Guys, I'm adding things up, and I'm looking at pretty darn close, coming up closer to $1,000 than $100. And the problem with this is that this costs us a substantial amount of money. So in addition to the financial burden that we've just discussed, the state of New Jersey, after Bruen, said, okay, you know what, we'll do this. We'll have a shall issue state permit, but the price went from $50 for the application fee to the $200 one that I just mentioned. So they upped the ante. They multiplied it by a factor of 4. And then on top of that, then they put a marksmanship training standard on there. So you have to go and you have to take a class, not only in the use of force, but then you also have to do a marksmanship training course. Now, initially, the state of New Jersey wanted people that were going to carry guns in their state to do what was required by the New Jersey State Police and retired law enforcement to renew their carry stuff once they retire. So in short, what this means is that the state of New Jersey expects a person wanting to carry a concealed carry firearm to have the same level of training and proficiency as somebody who's been in law enforcement for several decades. And I find this odd because I don't know of any other right in our country that not only you have to pay to exercise that right, but then you have to demonstrate a proficiency requirement. Can you imagine if we required people that were running for government to have proficiency in civics? Can you imagine if we had people that wanted to exercise their Fourth Amendment right to have expertise in law? Can you imagine if every time that you went to go drive, to go get your driver's license, that you had to be as good of a driver as Dale Earnhardt or someone else that drives professionally for a living? That'd be quite outrageous. So what can we look at from the Bruen case? How can we apply the language of the Bruen case to what I just described to you with not only the financial burden, but the training proficiency standard that you have to demonstrate? Well, a long time ago in this country, there was what was known as a poll tax. So people that wanted to go vote had to pay money for the privilege of voting. And people that were poor, people that were scraping by, they couldn't afford the poll tax, which for all intents and purposes made it outright impossible for them from a financial standpoint to actually participate in voting for that election. So if you're paying a bunch of money every 2 or 4 years, that stuff adds up. Well, the same thing applies for your permit in New Jersey because you have to renew that thing every 2 years. And it costs a lot of money to do that. Now, in addition to the training class, which is $150. So we're talking literally the modern equivalent to a poll tax. We can also draw that parallel from voting in the past. That has been proven to be an undue burden on the right to vote because the poll tax was struck down. It was showed as a burden. It was shown as unconstitutional. But then afterwards, they said, okay, no poll tax, no problem. But what we can do is we can do a literacy test for people to come in. Now, they knew a lot of people in many parts of the country back then were illiterate. They knew that they couldn't read or write, and if they could, they would do it at a much lower level than a lot of people could, say, had they been educated in school. So what they did was they'd give them very hard things to read, and sometimes they would even give them newspapers in a foreign language to read, and because people couldn't read that, then they would fail them. Oh no, you're not literate enough to vote. Done. So even that obviously was struck down. So we have a historical text and tradition of a right that was proven to be unconstitutional with the poll tax and unconstitutional with the literacy tax. And now in modern times in America, especially in the state of New Jersey, they want to do the exact same thing to the Second Amendment that they did with the right to vote. They do want the equivalent of a poll tax. Pay this money to get your permit and your processing fees. Oh, you have to be able to shoot this well in order to carry a gun. Folks, this is ridiculous. And if you want to know just how out of bounds that this is with our history, and you want to know just how egregious of an infringement on the Second Amendment that this is, I just gave you a pretty clear-cut example. And I understand that getting our rights and pushing the ball forward down the field, it takes patience, man. It takes time. It takes a lot of ability to withstand a lot of the frustration that goes with this. But I'd really like it out there if we could just push forward on the history and the absolute shoulders of the giants that we stand on, and know that we have this in the right to be able to get rid of all this stuff. These people are terrified of people carrying guns because they know that they've lost in court very slowly and steadily, and will continue to do so. So we need to push forward on this, and the way to show you that this is the way forward is when a lot of these firearms, when a lot of these training standards got passed, there was a huge amount of pushback. And what I'm looking for with the pushback is, specifically is, this was pushed back by the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs, specifically by attorneys Dan Schmuter and Evan Napin. These are guys in New Jersey that are attorneys that understand that they could push back against the state of New Jersey. And what they did is they got a lot of those firearms qualification standards pushed back to much more reasonable. Now, I don't think you should have to have any kind of proficiency test to carry a firearm in self-defense. Now, you may ask yourself, well, Reid, aren't you a firearms instructor? Like, don't you make a living training people to do this? Yes, I do. But the difference is that people come here voluntarily out of the desire to become a better shooter, not by coercion by the state. And there's a huge difference here. I know that people will come and train with us because they understand the quality of instruction that they're going to get, not because they have to, but because they want to. I have no interest whatsoever in saying people shouldn't have a degree of proficiency carrying a firearms, because I stand logically on the Second Amendment and the fact that it shall not be infringed. So when you're looking at this stuff, you know that a lot of the training standards, which I'll cover in a future video of what those training standards in the state of New Jersey are, I will show you how directly at odds this could be with being able to carry a firearm for self-defense, and just how unreasonable a lot of the places in the course of fire truly are. So I want you guys to understand, history's on our side. We can look at how things like this have been rejected in court, not only at the local level, the state level, and the Supreme Court have all roundly rejected stuff like the state of New Jersey has put on people before, not only in terms of voting, but I believe in the very near future that these kind of standards, financial burdens, and training standards will be overturned. There's no other right that's abused like the Second Amendment here in this country. There's no other state that abuses it like New Jersey. And I can't wait for people to actually push against this stuff, because it is a financial burden. It's an unrealistic burden to expect people to shoot like how law enforcement guys have been training for several decades. Now, is that hard to do? No. We usually have students do, and we have our students that are able to transcend what police have been doing for decades here after coming to class. It's not that big of a deal. But think about somebody who goes into this not understanding what they're going into. Think about a person who's new to firearms that would try to do this. It'd be a pretty demoralizing experience, and quite honestly, a huge impediment for carrying a firearm to defend themselves and their family. If you found the information in this video helpful, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, as I said before, and follow me on social media. That link is down below. And if you do want to learn how to get better with your firearm, come on out to Valor and we can help you. This is Reid Henrichs, Valor, reminding you, lessons that we learn are written on the tombstones of others. We'll see you on the ridge.